The embattled Russian ruble is regaining some ground after suffering its steepest fall in more than a decade on Tuesday. The European Parliament, it's going to be voting now on a resolution to recognize Palestine as a state, this in a non-binding but symbolic motion. Plus, spying in Scandinavia. Norway is on mobile bugging alert after a secret network of false base stations detected all around the government offices. Your top world headlines live from Moscow. It's RT International with me, Ruble Rusia. From all of us here, welcome to the program. The Russian ruble is apparently regaining some losses now after a shocking drop on Tuesday, witnessing its steepest fall in 16 years. Finance officials were rushed in for a late-night meeting over the dramatic rumbling on the currency market. Let's get more now with RT's Yegor Piskunov, who's joining us here live on the program. The currency market is open now, roughly an hour or so. Yegor, how's the ruble looking at the moment?
Well, the ruble's value continues to change constantly, and it first lost some value against the euro and the dollar in the first minutes when trading opened at the Moscow Stock Exchange. Then it bounced back a bit. Now it's standing at around 68 rubles for $1 and around 85 rubles for €1. But really, it's unstable, and these figures are very likely to change even by the end of this report. But in general, compared to what we've been witnessing yesterday, and Tuesday was deemed as Black Tuesday here in Russia, the ruble is regaining some ground because it did drop to record lows, passing the 80 rubles per $1 mark and the 100 rubles per €1 mark. And this was despite the fact that the Central Bank of Russia earlier increased the interest rate from 10.5 to 17% in an attempt to curb the amount of liquidity in the system and thus help strengthen the ruble. There are many opinions about what's causing this situation, which is being asserted as critical by the central bank. And according to the Minister of Economic Development, it is being caused by internal factors.
The rate of the ruble's fall is not following fundamental macroeconomical trends. That means the current figures reflect only certain market expectations, not the real situation. So we should give new goals to the market. The Bank of Russia should have raised rates earlier. When it comes to Russia's economic outlook, there won't be a major review.
The financial and economic part of the Russian government met for an emergency meeting late on Tuesday, and they have been promising a detailed plan of trying to stabilize the situation and resolve this crisis. And of course, we'll be monitoring the day as it goes on, and we'll be reporting on all the latest details.
All right, RT Yegor Piskunov. Thank you. Well, Pakistan has been left reeling from one of the most horrific terror attacks in its history. Pupils were taking an exam at a school in the city of Peshawar when the sound of explosions and gunfire ripped through the building. A gunman wearing suicide vests went on a bloody rampage, killing 132 children and 9 staff as the world was watching the tense pictures emerging from Peshawar. People remained trapped inside the school for 8 long hours. Gunmen went from classroom to classroom, opening fire indiscriminately. One girl pretended to be dead when they burst into her classroom, while another student even had to witness his teacher's execution.
We hid under the desks. They shot dead our teacher and burned her. After some time, army commandos came inside and rescued us.
Now, Pakistan has been facing deadly terror attacks certainly over the last decade, but this is the first time that so many children have been the victims. International law professor Daoud Khailarallah says the global community should stand together to prevent the sponsorship of terror.
We know that Taliban are powerful in Pakistan and they are powerful in Afghanistan. Ability to be funded and armed and trained and in this international environment without any effective restrictions is the worrisome issue. When the whole world is not united behind a decision to eliminate this kind of behavior, the children are the victims, the women might be victims, anyone would be a victim, old people, young people, anything that terrorists would consider convenient, they will go ahead and commit their crimes. It is the responsibility of the international community to act in unison, to act collectively and effectively in eliminating this kind of culture and this kind of behavior.
And RT.com has some other details of the horrific attack in Peshawar, including more witness accounts from survivors. If you want to read them, they're there for you right now at RT.com. Well, thanks for joining us here on RT International. Police in Colorado have arrested a man who witnessed an officer brutally punching a suspect earlier this month. He filmed this video.
Get the drugs out! Get the drugs out!
Yeah, the police officer is seen beating a drug suspect before shoving the 7 months pregnant woman down to the pavement. The incident now under an FBI investigation. Levi Fraser, who filmed the video, was arrested last week over what the police called, quote, a newly activated traffic warrant. Meantime, the officer has been promoted. Fraser spoke to us about what happened.
The officers in the video, you can see, they both say camera and camera, alerting the other officers that they are being filmed. And after I got done witnessing him strike the suspect in the face 6 times and trip his pregnant girlfriend, I decided to try to leave the scene. There was an officer that escorted me and followed me, unbeknownst to me at the time, all the way back to my work van. I turned around to see an officer with his hand out saying, give us the video. We need it for our lab technicians. He said, you can give us the video and we can do this the easy way, and he pointed right into the cop car like this. He said, or we could do this the hard way. And that was taken as give us the video or we're going to escort you and put you in the custody of. He grabbed my tablet out of my hand and said, what program did you shoot that video with? And I told him, hey, you can't do that. You need a warrant for that. I know when it was returned to my possession, the video was not on there. And as soon as I synced up to my Wi-Fi hotspot, the video appeared again. The arresting officers only have the power to incarcerate us until our time has come to step in front of the court system. At any time, I don't think anyone has the power to play judge, jury, and executioner at the same time. And to me, this was completely overboard and an excessive use of force.
And this news just in right now on RT International. The EU Court of Justice has removed Hamas from its terror organization blacklist based on conclusions that there's not sufficient legal evidence to prove it. Hamas was added to the EU's list in 2003 after a diplomatic effort led by Israel and the United States. And EU lawmakers in Strasbourg right now are set to vote on a non-binding resolution as part of a sweeping European drive to recognize Palestine as a state. Sweden set the trend, being the first major EU member to officially say yes to Palestinian statehood. The EU Parliament's vote comes after similar motions were taken in recent weeks by lawmakers in the UK, Spain, Ireland, France and Portugal as overall frustration is growing there at the deadlocked peace process in the Middle East. In the meantime, the Palestinian Authority is pushing forward a UN Security Council resolution which would set a 2-year deadline for Israel to withdraw from the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Here's RT's Paul Leslier.
It started with the Swedes.
We are doing Israel a favor with recognize Palestine, because the occupation must end.
Britain, Spain, France are among those who have followed suit with symbolic motions.
In doing this, we don't say there's an alternative to peace talks, but we do say this can be an impetus to advance peace talks, and most of all to advance peace.
And the Palestinians say it's the only way to end Israeli aggression, especially just days after the death of a high-ranking Palestinian minister.
If the bill is approved, then we're going to move in the direction of Palestine's accession to other UN agencies and conventions and protocols, including the International Criminal Court.
But not so fast. Just as it has done many times before, Washington is likely to veto the motion. And although the US risks isolating itself internationally and alienating Muslim allies in the fight against ISIS, Israelis are betting on this. Israelis are criticizing the Europeans for dictating to them while ignoring the very real security threats facing this country. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns that the proposal will lead to Islamic extremists inside the country. He's convinced Hamas will eventually rule a future Palestinian state, urging supporters of the bill to pay heed to the organization's extremist character.
Abu Mazen is breaking the rules in Israel's mind, waging a diplomatic war, trying to make Israel or force Israel by international mechanisms to declare Palestine's independence. This is something which is not acceptable by Israel.
The resolution calls for Israel to withdraw to pre-1967 borders. The deadline, 2016, a historic chance to put Palestine on the map. But first, the UN must be won over. Paula RT, Tel Aviv.
And the stakes are now being raised for Washington, which is finding itself under pressure from both the Palestinian Authority and, of course, Israel. The top Palestinian negotiator was on a charm offensive at a key meeting in London, trying to convince the US not to veto the resolution at the UN Security Council, which is widely expected. And that's what Israelis are relying on as well, according to the country's foreign minister.
We are under a massive attack, and therefore we need, I hope, we will make a pragmatic choice, not fanatic and not utopian. You can't simultaneously lash out at the USA and then expect to get their veto vote.
All right, still to come for you here on the programme on RT International. As the new year draws closer, RT more than doubles its own YouTube record with over 2 billion views. That story is just ahead. Also, we meet a man who says he has Britain's nicest job, which is doing a good deed every day. That story's coming up with the rest of your top worldwide headlines.
Join me on Boom Bust for in-depth, impartial, and en vogue financial reporting, commentary, interviews, and much, much more. Only on Boom Bust and only on RT.
Do we speak your language? Want news, programs, and documentaries in Arabic? It's all here on RT. Reporting from the world's hotspots, VIP interviews, intriguing stories. Are you here? Then try RT Arabic. To find out more, visit arabic.rt.com.
Hello again. Back to our breaking news story for you right here on RT International. The EU Court of Justice has annulled keeping Hamas on its terror organization blacklist. This follows the respective appeal from the organization asking to remove itself from the terror list based on conclusions that there's no sufficient legal evidence to prove it. Hamas was added to the EU's list in 2003 after a diplomatic effort led by Israel and the United States. Now, the Pentagon has confirmed it's boosting its presence along Russia's borders to guarantee, quote, peace and stability. That's what U.S. officials have told the RIA Novosti news agency. Now, according to a Pentagon spokesman, the build-up covers air, land and sea and includes military drills of various types. Let's show you some pictures here, some pictures from Latvia where a freight train can be seen carrying a column of American tanks or armored vehicles filmed early last week. Now, there are about 40 vehicles here, and when they were being sent to Baltic states and Poland for drills, they will remain there for who knows how long, but to help train the local troops there. The military build-up comes amid tension with Moscow over Ukraine. That's despite fresh diplomatic efforts to resolve the crisis in the country. Well, Berlin, Paris, Kiev and Moscow are affirming an urgent need for dialogue. Let's get more now from RT's Ilya Petrenko, jumping on the program with us here today. Ilya, we're seeing a mutual effort there, people pushing for peace in Ukraine. Otherwise, some others might say it's exactly the opposite.
Well, Rory, tensions are high, but yes, amid that, the people directly responsible for what the next moves will be, the leaders of Russia, Ukraine, France, and Germany are talking. They've had a conference call and agreed to keep up those phone discussions in the same format, the so-called Normandy format, in the next few days. But they've already outlined the top priorities in solving the Ukrainian crisis. That is kickstarting further negotiations between Kiev and the defined regions in Ukraine's east, and also continuing prisoner exchanges, and besides that, the continuation of the disarmament and pulling back military hardware from the conflict zone. Meanwhile, we're getting mixed signals from Washington about what the next steps of Washington are going to be. On the one hand, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has hinted at the possibility of the lifting of sanctions against Russia within weeks or even days. But at the same time, President Obama is still expected to sign the bill, which ensures further punishing measures against Russia and also unprecedented lethal U.S. military support for Kiev.
Right, RT's Ilya Petrenko, thank you. Last year, RT International became the first news channel to score more than 1 billion views on YouTube. But now it's doubled that with over 2 billion views.
We are in the
Now, RT's footage of the Russian meteorite exploding over Chelyabinsk, that remains the most popular news video on YouTube with over 39 million views so far. But just how big of an achievement is the record views?
2 billion. Almost 1/3 of those who live on planet Earth. Nearly 1/3 more than China's population, and 6-fold that of the US. The RT family on YouTube. 5 channels, 2.5 million subscribers, 10 million likes, and finally 2 billion views.
Yeah, that was the voice of our head of social media, Ivor Crotty. We also asked Ivor to explain what's brought such massive digital success.
I think you've got to give kudos to the guys who are working on the social media teams on the various verticals in the network. So I think the guys in Spanish, the Arabic, Russian side really deserve an awful lot of credit. And of course the guys on the Russian side who've been very dynamic the last 12 months. It's been a huge growth market for us. We've managed to catch videos early. I think we're a little bit more sensitive about video discovery than we were now. And in particular, I think some of the meteorite videos that have taken place over Russia have brought us an awful lot of traffic. And I think the channel has a reputation for finding those videos first in the RUNet space. Another one of the RUNet issues, I think, that has come up certainly been some of the military activities in the Russian space. In that sense, a video most recently from Chechnya, a gunfight between terrorists and local security, has also proved very, very popular. One of the most popular video on the network this year is this famous face-to-face of Putin and Obama at the D-Day memorial ceremony. They were looking left, looking right, and looking at each other. That's also been a very, very popular cobe, by the way, where we've put music, short pieces of music to some parts of the movies. I guess one of the most amazing statistics is that overall, this year, up to 3,500 years of video has been watched on the YouTube network, on the RT YouTube network. We've had a massive number of shares, likes, reshares, millions of comments.
Police in Norway are seeking answers over an alleged foreign spying operation after local media revealed surveillance devices were installed near government buildings in Oslo. In fact, here's an extract from an investigation carried out by the local daily newspaper Aftenposten.
At her, utenfor Stortinget, det satt opp 2 hemmelige, falske basestasjoner. Disse stasjonene kan overvåke, avlytte og tappe telefonen til statsråder, stortingspolitikere, næringslivstopper og folk som deg og meg.
Yeah, the Norwegian Parliament is pressing the government for answers while security services are trying to establish whether the fake mobile base stations were placed by a foreign state. RT's Peter Oliver has been following the unfolding spying scandal in Scandinavia.
The country's national security agencies investigating the possibility of foreign government involvement. Initial reports that had suggested that it could have been Russia or China have been dismissed by security experts. But the Norwegian government is under serious pressure to find out exactly who's behind this. Now, the system involved is very similar to another revelation that came out that was being used by the US Marshal Service. In that case, these fake mobile phone base stations were positioned on aircraft and were being flown around the country. However, as it stands at the moment, nobody knows exactly who's behind this latest spying scandal in Scandinavia.
Online for you right now. Life on Mars is looking even more likely, if a bit smelly. That's after the NASA rover has sniffed chemicals that could be a detection of living organisms there. Those details online right now. Also at RT.com, New York pets can breathe a sigh of relief. It's after a local government ruling prohibits owners from getting tattoos and piercings on their four-legged friends. The full story on our website for you this hour. All right, into the RT World Update we go, starting to Afghanistan now, where suspected Taliban fighters have detonated suicide bombs and then stormed a local bank in the southern province of Helmand. At least 10 people, mostly civilians, are now dead. Reports claim the attack took place while the bank was busy with government workers collecting their wages. And reinforcement troops have surrounded the office and are preparing to storm the building. Thousands of anarchist supporters have marched in Barcelona protesting against the arrest of a number of people as part of Operation Pandora. That saw police in Catalonia raiding homes and businesses in connection with the placing of small explosive devices near cash machines in Barcelona last year. Those detained came from Spain, Uruguay, Italy and Austria. Similar protests took place in other Spanish towns and cities. Buying meals for strangers, doing chores for the elderly or just making compliments to those around you. For 25-year-old Luke Cameron, it's actually a job and arguably the nicest in Britain. Cameron started his good deed blog about a year ago, pledging to do something good every single day.
Hello, this is very random. There you go.
What's that for?
Paid for.
Oh my God.
Have a nice
why
day.
do you do that?
I do something nice for somebody every single day. So
Really
you're
good
my good deed today.
Thank you very much.
No problem, bye.
Just sit there. Come on.
And a year after launching his blog, Cameron actually got an official job at a charity fund, so now he'll also get paid for his good deeds. RT UK spoke to the author of The Good Deed Diary.
Last year I lost somebody to cancer, and it really changed my perspective on life and on how I view things. So it was really that kind of life-changing event that made me want to do something better. And The Good Deed Diary was born on the 1st of January 2014, and I'm almost at the end of it now. I think it's definitely an uplifting thing. I've healed myself through helping others, and I think that's the most important message that I try to convey. I mean, I've gone through a whole life transformation this year, and I've actually definitely helped myself and my emotional well-being and my mental happiness by giving that to other people and seeing the happiness on other people's faces. And I think that's a really good lesson to learn, that actually you can help others by helping yourself. I reckon it's quite, in the thousands, that the money I've spent. I mean, I have a normal job, I live a normal life, I don't earn excessive amounts of money. So I've just, instead of going out drinking, I've just spent the money on helping other people. My mentality has really shifted from a materialistic perspective to one of just living a really happy and fulfilled life. And I feel that I've got so much more enjoyment now in my life than I ever did.
For more than a century, traditional British ice cream has delighted the taste buds of fans of a sweet treat. But its days now could be numbered. The EU has removed its long-standing quality standards for the market, leaving it open to so-called artificial ice cream. We sent out Anastasia Churkina to give it a taste.
The ice cream industry in the UK is worth over £1 billion, and it's getting slapped with some changes as the traditional British ice cream standards that have existed for over a century get thrown out the window by the European Union. New regulations come into force this week that redefine what real ice cream is, allowing for everybody's favorite treat to be much more artificial than before.
It's better if it's natural. A good ice cream should be more of natural stuff, more milk, more cream, less of the chemicals or artificial things.
Up until this moment, what's known as ice cream had to have a minimum amount of milk and fat in it to be able to pass the existing food standards. That will be no longer, opening the floodgates for cheaper products of worse quality, made of questionable ingredients, such as meat fat and meat protein disguised in an ice cream cone.
Well, I think it's terrible. They shouldn't be allowed to do it. It's not fair. We want to sell the quality, the best.
If it goes to like cheaper and less nicer, you'll just lose customers and less people want ice cream.
Outraged with the new lower standards, the UK's Ice Cream Alliance has kick-started a campaign with its own national quality standard, planning to put their own logo on ice cream to keep consumers aware of what they're buying.
We have set up our own standards, which really carry on from the old requirements to make sure that the members that we have continue to produce quality ice cream, which is what they're all for.
And while the EU is known to like to meddle in Britain's food regulation, this country's ice cream history has seen worse days. In Victorian times, for example, ice cream is said to have included even more unlikely ingredients, such as dog hair and straw. Thank goodness that's no longer the case. Anastasia Churkina, RT, London.
Here we come to you live from Moscow. Thanks for joining us here on RT International. Up next, Abby Martin taking a look at a new law which once again puts the US Congress under fire. Details about that in just a moment. But if you're in the UK, thanks for joining us. So the ruble, the focus in Boom Bust.